Hello everyone, I'm Golpo Dadu and today we have a story called The Great Automatic Grammatizator by Roald Dahl. This satire on the pulp fiction industry is set in New York around the 1970s. Adolf Kneip is a brilliant computer engineer at John Bollen Incorporated, a successful government contractor. But Kneip does not have his heart in his job. His secret passion is to be a writer. He has written hundreds of stories and articles, but they have all been rejected by magazines. One day at home, it hits Kneip. Magazines are not out for quality. Each has its own typical peculiar editorial policy that its readers wanted and that needed to be gamed. He sits bolt upright. Just as mathematical calculations follow specific rules of mathematics, he reasons, grammar too follows specific rules that can be programmed into a computer. Granted that a computer is not capable of original thought. It was capable of almost infinite memory. Kneip feverishly scribbled away notes. A computer could be taught the rules of grammar, have a large enough vocabulary stored in its memory, and could be programmed with plots. The computer would then be able to generate meaningful text. For the next few days, Kneip stayed in his flat, drawing intricate circuit diagrams for his machine, writing out plots and subplots, copying out whole sections of Roget's thesaurus, writing out formulae and calculations. Intense activity. At the end of 2 weeks, Adolf Kneip returned triumphant to the offices of John Bollen Incorporated and dumped his thick folder on his boss's table. He gave John Bollen a detailed lowdown on his idea, his machine. By tweaking the plot memory and the word memory sections of his machine, Kneip could exactly calibrate his machine for the requirement of each magazine. A magazine article was worth about $1,000. If they could have a hit rate of 10 stories a month, at a very conservative estimate, that would be a cool income of over 100 grand a year. They could recover their investment in 12 months. Kneip said most of his stories would be written under fictitious names, but he wouldn't mind if some were published under his. But what pleased Bollen most was Kneip's proposal that some of the best stories could bear Bollen's name. By the end of the week, Bollen was sold on the idea. In 6 months, the new machine came up in an empty section at the back of the premises, where entry was restricted only to the two of them. The control panel of the machine looked like the cockpit of a passenger aircraft. The first set of master buttons you selected was the name of the journal: Reader's Nook, Ladies' Home Improvement, Better Gardening, and so on. In case of novels, you selected the genre: historical, satirical, philosophical, political, romantic, erotic, humorous, etc. The second row of basic buttons gave you the theme: Army Life, Pioneer Saga, Civil War, World War, Racial Strife, Country Life, etc. The third row gave you the style: classical, whimsical, feminine, etc. The fourth row was for characters: male, female, age, angularities, and so on. The fifth row was for wordage, and so on to 10 rows of selector buttons. But that was not all. Control had to be exercised during the actual writing process, about 15 minutes per novel, by pushing or pulling stops and pressing keys as on an organ to modulate the flow of elements such as tension, passion, surprise, pathos, humor, and mystery, by keeping an eye on the various dials on the dashboard. The day of the first trial came. Bollen sat at the controls. He selected Ladies' Home Improvement from the list of magazines. The choice of antimacassar from the subjects. And out came a story. After a couple of mistrials, they succeeded in the third attempt. They had produced a truly useless, misleading story, and the story sold. They sold articles on better composting to better gardening, vapid short stories to Reader's Nook, all at a strike rate of 90%. Life was good. Then they wanted to write novels. Bolan sat gamely at the controls for the first trial novel. He selected satirical, racial strife, classical, 6 men, 4 women, 15 chapters. When the writing began, however, he was a bit too hard on passion, and the novel turned out to be a bit too raunchy to be submitted to the publishers. But he soon got the hang of it. The next novel he wrote, immediately thereafter, turned out to be a bittersweet love story. That was an instant hit in the publishing industry. Critics gave it rave reviews. By his 5th novel, Bolan was in contention for the Fiction Pulitzer. Meanwhile, Knipe has set up a literary agency to handle the stories and novels produced by John Bolan Incorporated. And in 2 years, he has signed up many of the established and upcoming writers in the country. But most of the prodigious output of the agency comes from writers whose true identity they were under legal obligation to protect. Then there are those writers who are stubbornly independent. They have refused to sign up to Knipe's agency. As for me, what am I going to do, you ask? I'll sign the contract, after all, when Knipe comes calling in his chauffeur-driven Cadillac next. Money, they say, is sweeter than honey. I hope you liked the story. Please don't forget to click on the like button and subscribe to my channel before you go. Bye for now.